whether you work in the private or the nonprofit sector. Here in UCSD, being a nonprofit sector, we already know that that's sort of one factor that's probably going to lower the wages for people everywhere here in this university, the women and the men. We find that women still have the impact of family. They're still less likely to work as many hours as men, to work as many years in the labor force as men. And we know that a big reason for that is simply that they're more likely to be the caretakers in the family. Negotiation of wages and union representation are two factors that make a little bit of a difference for women, especially when they start their career. So that's one thing we're going to talk about further today. And then unconscious bias, or sometimes overt bias. Some recent research found that when you look at the wage gap between women and men, still about 38% of that difference can't really be explained by any rational factor. So some of it could be just that people are looking at women and still making those stereotypes that, you know, she doesn't need to earn as much, she's not the primary breadwinner, and some of those factors still work against us. I wanted to share with you the overview of the wage gap between women and men, and this is over time. And you can see that when we first started tracking the wage gap, when the Equal Pay Act was passed around 1963, women earned about 59% of men's earnings. You can see that by 1972, women's earnings had really spiked up. That reflects that we had new laws, the Equal Pay Act, the Civil Rights Act. We had more women going into education, and all of those things helped improve women's earnings. But since then, earnings have been kind of flat. They haven't increased as much as they did, you know, in those early years. And so what we're trying to do is to figure out what we can do to keep women's earnings going up. Over a lifetime, women's lower earnings makes a huge difference. You know, some estimates are for college graduates, it can be at over 1 million years, but for the average woman, you know, easily over $400,000 less in her lifetime. And when you consider how many senior women live in poverty, you know, that is a significant factor that could make a difference for women in their retirement years. We just pay them better wages while they're working. Could make a huge difference for women's security during retirement. Now this graph is interesting because it shows us that when men and women start out in the workplace, their wages are pretty close. And even then, there's still a bit of a wage gap. That's when there really should be no wage gap, because there's really not a whole lot of difference in their experience or their ability or their education. In fact, at younger ages, women today even have more education than men. So there's still a little bit of bias that starts out at the very beginning. Could be also that even as women start their careers, they're not working in the kind of jobs where men are working. There's might be a premium on jobs that require more physical skill than jobs that require more high touch. You think of, you know, teenagers pushing lawnmowers or, you know, taking care of children. Unfortunately, we still value sometimes paying for our lawns more than we do taking care of, you know, our children. So the society still has a little bit of different ways of valuing work. And women are still more likely to work in those jobs that aren't valued as much. So that's one reason that the gap starts out. You can see that by about age 25 to 34, the wages really start to spread apart. And that's where we think that the impact of family starts really taking a toll on women's careers. So one of the ways that we can address that is to share the family responsibility caregiving a little bit more evenly. And hopefully that's one factor that can help make a dent right there. Now I wanted to share with you just a little bit of difference about the factors and how each of them plays kind of individually on the wage gap. And this first one was education. You can see by this graph that education is so important in raising earnings of everyone, both men and women. But even when women get the same extent of education as men, they're still not earning as much. Right over here with women with advanced degrees, you can see they're barely, not even keeping up with guys who just have college degrees. Again, what is sort of driving that? Well, occupational differences. Men and women might not be studying the same subjects to prepare them to go into the same types of jobs. We find that still, about half of women are just clustered in 3 occupational categories: sales, service, and office administrative jobs. Still very few women in the natural resources, construction, very few women in production, transportation. Women have made really great inroads over here in professional and related, but that's where our nurses, our teachers are. And again, those jobs pay a little bit less than some of the professional jobs that men hold. Over here, business management and financial. This is probably the area in the occupational group that has seen the most change over the last 30 years. Women have made great inroads into this field, but still, when you look at the wages, they don't always get the same pay or the same types of jobs in those fields. If we took a look at all of the occupations that the Department of Labor's Bureau of Labor Statistics studies, and we looked at every single occupational group, we'd find probably a pay difference for the great majority of them. There might be 1 or 2 where women are really close, but the vast majority of women are still earning less, even in the same occupation. And here's another sort of, again, rundown of sort of occupations, and you can see that really doesn't really matter so much what the occupation is. There's usually a bit of a wage gap. So again, here's the wage gap over time. It's slowly changing. Women's earnings are slowly coming more even to men's. But if we continue at this rate, the wage gap is not going to close by 2058. Does anybody want to wait that long? Nobody wants to wait that long. So what we want to do is figure out, what do we have control over? What can we change? So what do we know that makes a really positive difference? Negotiation and unionization can make a difference. So you might be taking all the steps you need to move into a traditional men's job. Maybe, do we have any engineers here in the audience? 1 or 2? Okay. So great. That's one of the strategies that we encourage women to do. Go into some of those non-traditional jobs. But once you get into that job, we want to make sure that the women engineers are being able to negotiate pay to the same extent that men are. And then being a member of a union makes a huge difference too. Any union members in here? Okay, great. So get active in your union. And as a union member, take on a leadership role and ask your union to make wages for women a high priority, especially for the job classes where women are concentrated. And the union as a whole can argue collectively on the behalf of women in those more traditional women's occupations. So that's a positive difference. Other things, if you are currently working in a kind of traditional women's occupation right now, it's never too late to think about a job change, to think about furthering your education or your training and moving into another occupation that pays more. Make sure that you understand what your rights are, that you read all the information that the Department of Labor puts out about workplace rights. Be familiar with the equal rights that are available not only through the Equal Rights Opportunity Commission, the EOC, but also here in California, which has one of the strongest worker protection laws in the country. In fact, a lot of workers don't even go to the federal agencies. They go straight to the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing. And they can really help you if you have a problem, if you feel like you're not being treated well at work. Negotiating your salary, joining a union, advocating for workplace flexibility, particularly encouraging men to use workplace flexibility. This is what really helps women that are raising families. And it's also really good for our society to build men's relationships with their families and to really bond with their children. Interestingly, right now, young men are reporting greater work-life stress than young women are. And one of the reasons that they say that they're feeling more stressed is that they have a little bit of a double backlash. Young men are much more likely to seek leave, to take time when their new children are born, or to be involved with their kids and after school. But when they do that, they're facing a bit of a backlash from the older generations who think that it's not their role to do it. So, that's got to change. We've got to get to a place where men can feel free to take time for their families, just as women do. So you're all doing sort of the next thing on the list is mentoring. Building on the power of women. And all of you in this room are leaders. You all have something to share. You all have something to learn. So mentoring goes both ways. So recognize that what you've learned so far can be useful to someone else, and then seek the guidance of women who have gone before you, either in the jobs that have been held before you or different occupations. And it's also just in the community. This conference, I think, is just a great example of how women can mentor each other and share their experiences. And then I just want to mention again, I mentioned a little bit about getting active in your union, but also getting active in your community and advocating for laws. Last year, California passed the California Fair Pay Act, which is the strongest fair pay law in the nation. So great for California. But here in San Diego, there's been a lot of efforts to advocate on behalf of women who are, or not just women, but to raise the minimum wage. And because women are much more likely, about 55% of minimum wage workers are women, that is a policy that'll have a disproportionate impact on working women. So that initiative is going to be up on the ballot in June. And take some time to think about that, to get educated about what that ballot initiative really is. And if it's something that you feel strongly about, you can make a difference by getting involved in that campaign for that initiative. And then voting. Don't forget to vote, especially in this election year. It's really important that women listen really, really carefully to what the candidates are saying and think about what their leadership on behalf of women is going to be like. Okay, so now let's talk about the one factor that we all don't like to do, but we can all probably learn to be a little bit better, and that's salary negotiation. So research shows that women are much less likely to negotiate their salary. And the reason for that is that women are pretty smart. They rightly perceive that other people are going to penalize them by being too aggressive. And women, for the most part, are the peacemakers of society. They are the sort of caretakers of our society. And that is a stereotype that sometimes people can view as, a good stereotype. But if you step out of it and you're not viewed as, a caretaker, but someone who's too aggressive on behalf of yourself or too self-centered, that might cause people to think negatively of you. And there's been a lot of, sort of studies where people have been given identical resumes, and when they find out that one is a woman and one is a man, they realize they rate them differently than if they are evaluating them sort of blind. So there are some stereotypes. And this first key factor, being effective with negotiation, is building connection and making the person that's across the table for you really, really like you. So how do you use that stereotype to work on behalf of yourself rather than to sort of backfire against you? Well, one thing that we have learned through research is that when women are viewed as negotiating on behalf of others, it's really, really positive. Do we have any lawyers in the room? No lawyers? Okay. Women lawyers are fierce negotiators on behalf of their clients. And nobody is more proud of an attorney who, wins for their client. And when women do it, they are really, really good at it. Because people don't people don't look at them and say, oh, she's not being feminine. They think, oh, she's championing the rights of someone else. And so that's viewed positively. And women have no problem when they're in that role, championing the rights of others. So that's one thing that we're going to think about a little carefully. So when you are negotiating on behalf of yourself, you want to play into that stereotype as yourself as a champion of others. So the next one, they need to believe you deserve it. One way that you can help the person across the table from you realize that you deserve it is by helping them make the transfer. Wow, she's advocating for herself, and she's going to bring those advocacy skills here on behalf of her work as well. Now, one of the great things about UCSD, it's a very prestigious university. Everybody wants to work at UCSD. It's just a great place to work. And it has a great mission. We are taking care of people. We are advancing research. We are working on important projects. And it's a great mission. And it's really, really easy to get excited about the mission and to communicate that during your interview. And to say, I am so happy to work at this university, or I am so excited about the prospect of working at this university because I feel so strongly about the important work we do with patients, or the important work we do with students, or the important research projects. We are changing the world. We are making the world a better place to live. And I want to make sure that I make the world a better place to live by working here at this university. And I'm going to ask you to consider paying me, at the mid-range of this salary. You could, if you're talking numbers at that point, you could even say, I deserve to be paid, $50,000 because the passion I bring, for my work is what you're hearing right now as I'm advocating for, my salary. I am a really strong advocate, not only for myself, but for everyone that I care about. And you're going to see that translate to my work. So you see how that's a little kind of a shift there? You're not really talking about yourself. You're talking about what you can do for them and how you can bring your own power to work every day for the university. So the next thing about making sure that the people across the table from you believe that you deserve it is you're going to need to think about how you sell your skills and come very, very prepared to articulate not only how your work experience makes a difference in what you can do on the job, but your volunteer work, your community leadership work. All of those things are really, really important. And you want to use that as kind of evidence to justify why you really deserve a higher wage. The next one I think is really important to keep in mind is that, the salary negotiation is part of a conversation. And the most important thing is you're connecting with the person. You're wanting to show that not only are you a strong advocate for yourself, you want to be an advocate in that department, and you care about that department, and you understand that the university has sort of a process and some procedures, and maybe even salary ranges that they can or cannot exceed. And I understand that here at the university, different departments have different budgets, and that impacts how sometimes even people in the same position might have different salaries because of the caps in that department's budget. So that's the kind of thing that you're going to want to communicate, that you understand the university process and you want to work within it. And you be receptive and flexible when it comes to that. The other thing about research, we'll talk a little bit about how you do some of that research, but every time you're looking for a new job, it's really, really important to really, really prepare, really know what the rate is for jobs in that, what the going rate is for jobs in that occupation, but also not here just in the university, but outside the university. And also be really willing to, sell your skills and everything that you've done. The other thing I heard a career counselor say the other day is that one of the ways that you prepare is also to make sure that you are willing to talk about the things that you don't want them to ask you. You know, say you had a bad experience and you got fired in your last job. You don't want them to bring it up. But they're probably going to bring it up. You don't want to be surprised or caught off guard. So if there's anything in your background, your resume, that you don't want to talk about, that's the thing to focus on. Really get comfortable being prepared to have a positive answer and to really engage in those kind of uncomfortable discussions. Because it really is important to be honest. You know, we all want to advocate and put ourselves in the best light, but you don't ever want to say anything that's not true, that can't be backed up. Because you're probably going to be background checked. They're probably going to find out if you're saying something that's not true. And again, just, you know, building that connection, building your integrity really starts sometimes right there in that interview. So you want to make sure that everything is above board and that you're being as forthright as you can. So let's talk a little bit about the very specific process of UCSD. As I was preparing for this presentation today, I thought, wow, what is it like to apply for a job here? So I went on the website, I pulled up the job bulletin, I started looking through jobs. I found one that kind of looked interesting to me. So I thought, okay, well, how would I apply for this? So I started, you know, exploring further. I learned that I had to build a profile. And I was building that profile, I noticed that they were asking me what was my minimum salary requirement. And I was like, really? They're really asking me that? You know, there's sort of a little meme that goes around that in salary negotiation discussions, and it says, whoever names a number first loses. So I'm thinking, wow, they're already making me, you know, they're already handicapping me right off the gate. So how do you do that? Well, one thing you might want to start with just as a base is go up at least 25% over your current salary. You don't want to name a minimum that might put you outside of some of the ranges for the jobs that you're interested in. So one of the things that you can do as you're applying for jobs is always keeping that career profile up to date and adjusting that minimum salary requirement based on the job that you're applying for. You know, maybe you could set the minimum salary sort of like right at the top of that mid-salary range that you're going to find. But you might want to adjust it if you're applying for another position that maybe has a higher range. Even if you see a job that's advertised salary commensurate with experience, you're going to want to do a little bit of market research and sort of have a sense of what the upper range of that salary range might be for that occupation. And again, you can adjust that for each occupation you apply for. So let's talk about how you look up information. Has anyone been on this website before? Is everybody familiar with it? Okay. I was trying to use this one to plug in some salary information. I kept getting stuck. I couldn't get past a certain screen. So if that situation happens to you, reach out to HR, call them and say, hey, you know, what's going on with the website? I can't, you know, figure this out. Or I don't know if your website has a kind of webmaster you can send in an email or something. But don't be discouraged if it's not working for you. Whoops. And then there's some other websites that you can use as well, and these are in your handouts. But these will help you get some really accurate salary data. And then checking external salary. You want to know not only what does the position apply, what is the salary range for the position within the university, but what does someone who does a very, very similar job get paid outside the university? And these are a couple of websites that you can go through to check. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at how we sort of talk about it further. After you sort of do your market research, you want to connect with the person, you want to think about their interests, you want to place yourself in being an advocate not just for yourself, but for the work that you bring. You want to be really well educated about what the range is for that occupation. And you're going to want to be able to, feel comfortable talking and asking for more if the first offer they provide to you is a little bit lower than what you had hoped for. It's fine to say things like, wow, I'm really excited with this job offer. The initial rate you've offered me is a little bit lower than what I had wanted. Is there any flexibility? Kind of sound them out. Again, you want to be smiling, you want to be making them like you. You play into the stereotype, you're a good girl, you're a team player. Just, you're going to get comfortable. It's not a conversation that comes naturally to a lot of us. So we're going to do a little role play that'll kind of help you, get comfortable even talking about salary. So I gave you guys a handout that is a typical occupation, here at the university. Someone who works at one of the hospitals admitting patients. And the person needs at least 3 years of experience and good customer service skills, comfortable handling money. And because we went on the UCSD website, we know that the mid-range for this position is about $37,000 a year. And the high is about 46 here at the university. But if we go to salary.com or some of these other websites, we can see that, some people at the mid-range are making sort of at the top of what UCSD can offer. And here's another one that sort of just tells us, down here you can see the average range. That one's a little bit closer to what UCSD is. And this one, again, the average, 40K, being a little bit about at the higher range than what UCSD offers. And then even if you do like a Google search, you could just type in an occupation. You're going to get tons of things that are going to come up. So what we're going to do is go back, and I'm going to ask you to choose a partner, and one of you be the employer, and one of you be the person who's advocating for this job. And just sort of take a few minutes trying to negotiate a salary and see how you do. Okay, I think we have 5 minutes to do this. Is everybody okay with this? Does anybody have any questions about it? Okay, one more minute. Okay, can we start to wrap it up? Okay, if anyone was able to negotiate a $46,000 salary, raise your hand. Anybody get one? All right, we got a couple. Good job, ladies. So some of you may have noticed that in the salary scenario I gave you, the person who was looking for the job, had minimum experience, but she also had a lot of things that really made her a fierce advocate for patients and a lot of experience handling money, and she was a community leader. Did anybody use sort of that background in sort of advocating why you would be a really deserving of a higher salary? A couple of people did? Okay. So again, I hope that exercise was sort of useful to you and helped you kind of shift your thinking. Did you have a question? Yeah, I made a mistake. I was flipping the numbers and I forgot to flip them from high to low. So the high hourly rate should have been 22, not low. But thank you for pointing that out. So everyone on that, cross that, make that correction on your slide. Any other questions that people have? We do have a UCSD HR person who might answer a specific. Yes? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, you want to talk about how much you enjoy working at the university, how you want to stay and grow, how you're committed to making this university the best place, for patients or for students, and that you feel like you have a lot to offer. You reference your work, but the key is you want to build the employers or your bosses kind of understanding that you're not just talking about yourself. You're not just asking about more money for yourself, but you are part of, the mission of the university, and your strength is part of the university's strength. It's sort of a subtle shift, and you can do it whether you're entry level, mid-career, or even going for a more, director level kind of a position. Just practice it with your friends. Get a friend to say, hey, could you help me, kind of play through this scenario? Because I think the more comfortable we get with it, and again, practice being nice, practice smiling. It's hard to talk about money. We have a cultural taboo against talking about money in this society. So it's not easy to just do it without, getting comfortable practicing. Yes? Right. That might be a good question where you oh, this is great news. I'm so excited. And then you ask the question, are you flexible on that number? And sort of open the discussion. And they either say, no, we're at the top of our, we really went out on a limb for you. And so okay. If they say, yeah, we have a little bit of flexibility, then you say, great, I want to, think about this a little bit further. Can I call you tomorrow? It's okay to buy that time. If they don't have the time, they'll tell you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, no right now doesn't mean no all the time. So you could accept, if you really want the job, you can agree to do it then. But you can say, you know, let's talk about what the future is. You know, is there room to grow in the future? You know, give me a sense of what the possibilities are. You can also try to, at that point, say, you know, okay, I'm willing to come in at this lower rate, but I need to be here every day at 9:30 because I want to put my kid on the bus to school, or because, you know, parking is better at 9:30. You know, whatever it is. You know, is there any flexibility on sort of starting time, something like that. I think that's the last time we have for the questions, but I do want to let everyone know that there are great videos on salary.com that you can take a look at. There's great resources on the internet. The Harvard Negotiation School has got a lot of terrific stuff on negotiating. There's free reports you can download and read. And if anybody has any questions, you can find me in the Women's Bureau. I'm on the internet, dol.gov/WB. Thank you.
Yes, I am. I'll be honest with you. And I'll tell you why. I present to students. I don't present to staff. And this is a pretty large crowd for me. And public speaking, I'm terrified of. I can do it in front of students. Staff is a totally different audience. So today it's going to be all about you. And thanks for some of my colleagues in the audience supporting me today. And for my mentors, you know who you are. You're in the audience. I have 5 total mentors that I have at this campus. And I see 2 to 3 of them in the audience. So thank you for being here. Okay, let's get started with an activity. Take your finger, your index finger, and twirl it clockwise. And look at your index finger. Now bring it down, all the way down. Keep looking at it. Bring it back up toward the ceiling, and bring it back down. I had you do that activity, and I'll tell you why. I'll explain it. Because you see things 2 ways, but the world doesn't. See, your boss sees things one way, but you see it both. Your spouse, your significant other, sees something one way, but you see it both. Students that you work with, coworkers that you work with, see one way, but you see it both. I described this to my boss. I said, you know what? I love hiking every weekend. And I'll tell you why I love hiking. Because when you climb that mountain, you see one direction and you see a different outlook of what it looks like when you're up at the mountain. But when you come down, it's a whole different perception. So I just wanted to bring that up because in the workforce, we see things that other people don't see. And so today you're going to do a lot of reflection. Probably, I don't want to be up here talking a lot, but that exercise I did came from this. Tiagi, if you go to YouTube and you type him in, he has got some really cool videos if you work with students, great icebreakers. You've been each given a sticky, and what I'd like you to do, does everybody have sticky? Raise your hand if you don't. Okay, so Amy's passing out stickies. What I'd like you to do, and these activities I use on students, but they could be used for anybody. And this is all about you and your self-reflection. Please write down your career goal. What is it that you want to do? Currently, I am a career counselor. I am a mother. I am a sister. I am a coach. I am a wife. I am more than that. And the job that I currently have as a career coach, I want to do more than that. I don't want to just be a career counselor or a career coach. I want to be 20 other things. Write down what you want to do. And you notice I'm not using technology. I have a 10-year-old boy. This is how he learns. It's going to be hard. No. Okay. Amy. Oh, thank you. Oh, that's how we do it. Got it. All right. It should work. Thank you. Thank you very much. We don't tell many people our career goals, and I don't understand why. I think it's because maybe sometimes we don't know what they are. But writing helps a lot. And this is pretty much, I'm going to have you journal. It's how I get through life. It's how I get through my development. It's personal, professional. Write down your career goals and go ahead and slowly stick them up here if you'd like. You don't have to put your name. Just stick your career goals on this tree. At lunchtime, you know what I did? I sat on a sunny bench. I looked at a tree outside and watched 2 crows eating. It was the most fascinating thing. Actually, my favorite tree is the aspen tree and the bamboo tree because it can't be broken. And I thought you've been sitting too long, so I thought maybe you can get up and move. This activity that I'm doing, I do for students, it's pretty amazing. Can you tell I'm a little innovative and creative? I didn't do PowerPoint, and you're going to do all the work. This is better than going to the spa. Well, not really. I think I need to go to the spa after this. It's so colorful. Wow, my tree has orange leaves and some pink. Oh my gosh, you're amazing. I think I have like about 110 stickies. I was told I was only gonna have 30 students in this class or attendees. Why are there 210 sitting in front of me? I think I've overcome public speaking, which is one of the biggest fears. And I have to thank Amy Clay, my friend, for inviting me to do this presentation, because one of my fears is public speaking, and part of this presentation is my professional development. I need a volunteer in the audience who's not shy, who would like to publicly speak, and if you don't volunteer, I'll have to volunteer. Thank you. I've got 2. Could you read just a couple of these out loud? Thank you.
President of an organization that helps those in need or guide direction. A professional accountant, accounting team manager. Working my passion and be happy doing it. Find passion. To obtain a master's degree, to be a therapist, help people feel hope about the future, their life, and their body and mind. More manage my department. Managing my own department. Community college counselor. I want to get into career advising. I want to supervise. I want to grow. Beauty consultant. Director or AVC or dean. Board of Education science rep. Making a difference. Get my master's. Making a difference or guiding others to reach their goals as a coach. Seen as a stronger leader. Move up at UCSD and also step outside and begin an entrepreneurship.
There's a lot more than that, but you know how inspiring it is to hear how many goals there are? Why aren't we doing it? Because we're afraid? Because we don't know how to take action? Because we don't think we can? Something's holding us back. And whoever said they wanted to be a career counselor, come see me. But I do invite all of you to see me anyways afterwards. You were handed out a piece of paper. It has 3 columns. actually a piece of paper that says my goals, my values, and what's the third column? Oh, that's not it. Oh, there it is. Yeah. No. One says your career goals, your values, and your future career. Raise your hand if you did not get it. Oh, it looks like the entire room didn't get it. You've already answered column 1, so it looks like a 3-column. Column 2 is your values, and column 3 is your future goal. On page 2, what I'd like you to do is write your 5 top values in the boxes. This was taken from the Strengths Quest booklet through Gallup. There are a series of values, but what I'd like you to do is only pick your 5. What is important to you? I've selected my 5. So take some time to select your 5, and I'll tell you why I selected them. And I'll tell you why it connects with my future career goals. What you're doing is choosing values that align with your career. You're basically doing a career assessment right now. And it's not online. You're writing it out. If we don't value anything, how can we move forward with our career? Our values mean everything. Some of you have stickers, but some of you can write it in. And our values changed at different times of our period of our life. In the 3rd column, write how your career goal aligns with your values and your future career. I'm going to give you an example of my top 5, and then you'll be able to do the same. I value relationships, caring for and spending time with my family and friends. I also value my relationships with the people I work with on this campus. So that helps align the value of partnerships and collaboration on campus. Relationships is so important to me. Personal growth. I'm a lifelong learner, are you? I think you are because you're sitting in this room. So personal growth is my 2nd one. I continually take classes through Career Connection and staff development. I'm trying to get a certificate in this innovative mid-manager level type certificate through staff education. There are so many certificates that you can get, and I just want to put a plug in there. I am a lifelong learner, and that's where value number 2, personal growth, comes in. Compassion. I have compassion to work with those. Part of my goal right now is to become a yoga instructor. I have 10 classes left here at UCSD. I have compassion for those people who deal with pain, who suffer from any type of illness. And I am doing part of that as a value for my own life, for self-care, and for others. I want to teach others. Loyalty, being devoted to a person, ideal, duty, or cause. I have a loyalty to this university. I don't know if I told you I've been here for 15 years, and I have a loyalty to the students that I serve in my career counseling profession. Innovation. I didn't use technology today, but I'm using it in other ways with assessments and career readiness. And I'm hoping to hopefully use it somehow. And that's a new skill for me. I'm not very technical, but I'm always trying. So now what I'd like you to do is turn to someone you do not know and share with them your career goal and your values. You'll have 2 minutes each. my hand. Do you remember that in kindergarten? How was that activity, or does anyone want to share? What did they learn about themselves or their partner? Was it a very difficult activity? I hear the word reflection. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Just had to think a little bit about, it's kind of a reflective process to kind of think about what my values are, and I don't really, it's more, I act on them more than really understand what they are immediately, so I have to think about it.
Yes.
My group and I were agreeing that it was tough to pick just 5 values. So they were all similar and really good ones. And then also I felt empowered because we have not only we have similar goals, but because I don't know, the way we were just sharing them, so we could see that empowered and within ourselves and sharing that with others.
Great. So what I heard was you felt empowered. You also found it very difficult to choose just 5, and you also said that there's a connection between you and your group members. So that's very good. Great. Okay. This is something that I think that you should always reconnect with, and your values will definitely change as the years go by when you're in different stages in your life, especially with your career development. Okay. We're going to do one more activity with our hands. Okay, so let's put our hands together like this. You've probably done this before. Put your middle finger, like press it down. Point forward. Press, okay, got your middle finger down? Separate your pinky. Okay, place it back together. Separate your thumbs. Okay, separate your index finger. Now separate your ring finger. Oh, I barely can do that. The point of that exercise is things aren't always as easy as they may seem. Take a piece of paper out. And answer this question. Where do you want to go, and what are you willing to do to get there? You'll have 1 to 2 minutes to do that. Where do you want to go? And what are you willing to do to get there? 1 to 2 minutes. Okay. That's just one of the prompts. I keep a journal for every year. Yes, I do. It helps me get to my goals quicker. Here's my journal from 2010 I share with you. I draw a sketch. The sketch says I'm going to live in the country, and I'm going to do what I do best, and try to complete a certificate, career counseling, and a yoga studio. Combine my careers, career counseling with what I love, yoga. And I drew it in 2010, and it happened. Both goals came to life in 2012. I do live in the country. I used to not. And I mean the country going all the way east. I have a bigger backyard. It's quiet, surrounded with trees. And it's far from the ocean, but not too far. And I shared this with 5 people. This is my 2010 journal. Here's my 2016. It says UC San Diego on it. I shared it with 5 people on this campus because I never eat alone. For being here for a long time, I know so many people, and I never burn bridges. I probably know one person every department. You don't have to buy lunch. You could bring your own lunch. You could have a cup of coffee. But out of all the people I know, I picked 5 people to be my mentor. They officially don't know it, but they are. They're the ones to walk with me when I'm having a bad day. They're the ones to have a coffee with me at Starbucks or on Pete's. Because there's people who stay in their office, but no, not me. I never eat alone. I actually met Keith Ferrazzi. He's written that book, and he's also written Who's Got Your Back. It's called networking, because if you have no friends and you have no people, you have no future job. Let me tell you a story. My husband lost his job during the holidays. Yeah, he did. Out of work for 2 months, and I have a child, and I'm a student affairs 3 on my income. Well, he's lucky. He's part of 2 organizations in San Diego, the San Diego Bike Club and the UC Cyclery Club. Those were his friends. And the 3rd bike club, the Descenders. Half of them are CEOs of companies in San Diego. Talk about never ride alone. Yeah, that 2 months was hard. But it's all about who you know. So answer this next question. What are the 1 to 5 most crucial relationships I want to establish or cultivate in the next 12 months? Who is it on this campus that you want to know or become, or are they somewhere else? Who can influence you? I can think of 5 right now. 2 on this campus, 3 off this campus. I want to surround myself by positive people who can encourage me and see me become who I want to become. I have a small group, but I hope my tribe grows. Let me repeat the question. What are the 1 to 5 most crucial relationships I want to establish or cultivate in the next 12 months? Who do I want to know? Who can influence me? Who can make me and help me reach my goals? Who do I want to become, or who can help me get there? Journal writing helps me with my heart, my mind, and my soul. It helps me get through the tough days, and it helps me document all the happy days. I also have a coloring journal book. You know how they have those ones at Costco or the bookstore? I have pencils, colored pencils. I make my mind go free and just, I escape. I know, sorry. I have to escape sometimes. I think I'm over the public speaking thing. I think I could breathe now. Okay. You got the prompt? All right. Thank you. Oh, I didn't finish this one, but I just picked, like pictures, can you tell? I love visual things. I just picked some things that mean taking action. On your third column, or on the bottom of your sheet, says take action. Did you notice that? The horizon leans forward, offering you space to place new steps of change. I woke up this morning and I realized I don't have what it takes to sit back and be average. I'm not the average person. Personal power's ability to take action. Act now. What are you going to do next? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm tying it all into your development. Trust me. I already took action. I created an IDP. Who knows what that is? Good. All your hands should be up. Individual Development Plan, which Amy's going to pass out. Oh, you're looking at it. Yes, sir. You each need one of those. And I'll tell you why. Performance in our office is March 31st. My boss has that right now. I've created goals, and I started this in fall. I start one every year. Actually, I started it last year. An individual development plan is a plan of action for you. In career counseling world, we have students do career action plans to help develop self. Why don't we do it for ourselves? In these boxes, you would be writing a short-term goal, a long-term goal, a development goal. You'll also be filling in what you're doing or resources to get to your goal. This helps me keep on track what I'm doing. It helps me remember, and I can change it at any time. It also makes a good conversation piece when I have to talk to my supervisor. It also documents what I do and the importance of my work, because I believe in the work I do. I don't just do my job to do it. I wake up every morning wanting to come here, yes. And if I don't, I need to change this plan, because it's not my plan. My plan has to be what I want it to be. If I'm unhappy, I need to do something about it, right? The thing is, we write everything down, then we have a chaotic life, and then we take no action. This is your time to take action, and I have 5 minutes left by the timer, and I invite you to invite me to meet you for coffee or connect with me on campus, because as you know, my values are relationship and helping you succeed. With 5 minutes left, I'm going to stand in the back of the room, but if you want to drop your business card in here, go ahead. I have a special raffle to give out for a winner. Thank you for attending my session. I'll be in the back room for questions.